Osiris.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Touchdowns All Day podcast with John BARBER and Max Dawson. I'm on the road right now. I'm in Albany. We're playing our Northeast leg of the tour. And let me tell you, this tour has been going really well. Everybody's having a great time. Pretty excited about it. I think, you know, when you leave tour for like 2 weeks and you get back on the road, sometimes there's a little bit of like, it's like a stage fright almost. It's like a tour fright where you don't know if you can do it. You don't know if you can remember all the things you have to remember when you walk out on stage. You don't know if you can do like all the transitions and different songs that some of them you haven't played in years. Some of them are brand new. And it's just this whole assortment of different things that you have to feel confident in to get back on the road. And I think we're pretty good at feeling confident in it. But let me tell you, if you are not feeling 100% confident in the return to tour, a really good way to get happy is to be given a really great guitar by Paul Reed Smith. That's a really great way to get excited, to be really excited about the show, and to get your mind right, and to get into that mental headspace that you need to be in to excel at the kind of music that we excel at, which is, rotating shows, rotating set lists, song lists, rotating jam ideas, just the massive amount of chaos that goes into a disco music show that has to be done confidently and as professional, legendary motherfuckers do. And one thing that'll make you feel really good about that is to be given an incredibly sweet and beautiful Paul Reed Smith guitar the morning before the show. So I recommend that we figure out a way to get me a new Paul Reed Smith guitar every single tour, every leg, the first day of tour. Start with the guitar transfer and then go play the show on that guitar. It worked great. It works incredible. It was nice of Paul Reed Smith himself to come out and shake hands and introduce himself to me and me to him. And, a little back and forth there was fun. The guy is a legendary American businessman slash entrepreneur slash guitar maker slash luthier. He's, there's only really 3 great guitar brands, and he's one of the 3. I guess you could include Martin Acoustic, so maybe 4. And there's been a lot of others. And me, I'm a big fan of the Parker, and the Parker didn't quite make it to that level. So, what he's accomplished is amazing, and that guitar is incredible. I'm super happy about it. So thank you to Paul Reed Smith for the incredible guitar. And it really got me in the right headspace for the week of shows, which was, this is legendary, and everybody's in on it. Even the guitar makers are in on it. And the next step for me was to just play a bunch of great shows. We did an incredible show in Pittsburgh, our biggest show ever in Pittsburgh, at a very cool venue. I believe it's called Stage AE or something, but it was a huge venue. It was basically a little basketball arena. You could put a basketball court on the floor for sure, so it was a decent-sized basketball arena, but it wasn't a full-on thing. So, it was like a halvey or something. But it's really great, and apparently in the summertime, it opens up to a huge, like 15,000 venue or 10,000 or something. I'm not sure the exact numbers, but it was a great spot to play. I really enjoyed that gig a lot. I thought the band played fantastically. I thought the crowd was cool. At one point, Mark said, how many of y'all have never been to a Disco Biscuit show before? And it seemed like half the crowd was cheering. So if any of you are listening to this podcast as your first Disco Biscuit podcast, welcome. It's great to have so many new faces. It really is an amazing feeling to be playing not only for our hardcore fans who've been there forever, but also new faces who are newly fascinated by things and excited by things that maybe the old heads aren't excited by anymore. And it's kind of cool to, maybe play songs that have that kind of effect on people, which is really fun. So we're having a good time. Then we went to our favorite little Charlottesville movie theater / venue, which is called the Lincoln Theater, and that was sold out. So that was like a madhouse of hardcore heads, and the Richmond crowd was there, which is great. Love to see all of them. So we had a great time. I was really excited about it. The new guitar passed the fan test every single time. The jams were exceptional. I brought the Gibson back out for the weekend because I just received a lot of, requests for the Gibson online. Just people have been hitting me up saying, where's the Gibson? Where's the Gibson? So I brought that out too. And the combination of the Paul Reed Smith and the Gibson is terrific. They work well together. I might leave that combo up for a minute because it seems to be creating some really great shows. And here we are in Albany. I went home for 2 days, and during those 2 days, I discovered that this little ice machine that I had bought on Amazon for like $100, which is great little, like, put it on your countertop, fill it with water, it makes ice for you. And it was cheaper than having the guy come over, look at the ice machine in my freezer, and tell me that it was broken permanently. It was cheaper than that. And so I bought it. The repair people can't fix a fridge anymore. They just come over and look at it and then tell you that they can't fix it, right? And they charge you $129 for that. Well, this was $110 for the actual ice machine. And I had it for a couple of years. I was very excited about it. I was like, you know what? Having a dedicated ice machine is really great. Ideally, you can just make as much ice as you want. It's its own separate thing. You can put it anywhere you want. It's a little tiny thing. It's great. It kicked the bucket over the weekend, and now I have no ice machine. So I go look online. I'm like, maybe we're ready to step up to like a real ice machine. And I find out a real ice machine is $3,500. And I'm like, what? How do you go from $99 for a little ice machine to $3,500 for an ice machine that's only like 4 or 5 times bigger and sits under the countertop? A brand new fridge with all the bells and whistles is like $2,200. Why is the ice machine, which is clearly, has all the same parts as a fridge, but less, it doesn't have the handles, it doesn't have the drawers, it doesn't have anything, and yet it's still almost twice the price. So what is going on with the ice machine market where you can't buy a reasonably priced ice machine? You can only buy the $99 one again, and the other one is like insane. $3,500 for an ice machine. They gotta be crazy. I don't know who buys these things. Somebody must. And all of those people are getting ripped off. Obviously. So next up is we have some Baba G shows being booked. We have a June 1st show in Brooklyn with Ben Atkin from Goose. He's gonna play some drums during the set. He's a very talented and smooth and terrific drummer. So I think we're going to do some cool, interesting things together. Might be a little different from the like straight techno that I've been doing in Baba G, but it's going to be inside of that techno world the whole time. So we'll make it cool. We'll keep it go. And that's June 1st in Brooklyn. That's going to sell out. So get your tickets. We also just are booking, I'm probably a little early to announce this, but I believe May 18th, DJ Brownie and I are going back to the 8x10. And that is going to be, last time it was a great little show, came out of nowhere in December, and we're going back in May. They asked us back, and we're going to, that show might sell out as well. So keep an eye out for a ticket link to the 8x10 DJ Brownie Baba G. Similar to last time, probably switch sets on some level. Whatever Mark wants to do, I'm good with. And we also have been planning a Philadelphia residency type thing for Baba G, where I'm going to just play, I'm going to play some little bar or something with a good sound system, but a smaller place, and just kind of show up there. I'm trying to do it on the same night, but every time they send me dates, it's different. So I'll get back to you guys with that. We're going to do a little Philadelphia hang residency, culture type of thing where we can all get together, all the people be there hanging out, low stress, low ticket price, hang out, listen to some music, and hang out with each other. It'll be very, very cool. I'll keep you posted on that. So those are the little updates coming up. Bisco Land got announced. The October show was so successful last year that they decided to move Bisco Land to the July 4th spot, which is a huge bump up in scheduling. And I know I got people in the comments being like, it's too hot. You know, like, what are you going to do to your jumpsuit or whatever? Like, there are people who, you know, are going to be upset with every decision that happens, no matter what. If we left it in October, there'd be even more people being like, when are you going to do it in the summer? Where's your summer festival? And I'm fine with it. I love everybody telling me what they like and what they don't like. Give me, if you want it in October, now we know. Maybe we should do something in October. But for us on that particular location of Bisco Land, that particular setting, which is so pastoral, if you will, and beautiful, in July, it's going to be awesome and crazy. The camping is going to be incredible. The vibe is going to be legit. This is the Bisco Festival that y'all have wanted. It's good. They gave it to us this year. They were excited about last year. They're excited about this year. July 4, 5, and 6, I believe. Bisco Land, keep an eye out for that. That is most definitely happening, and we will see you there. I think potentially who's going to support, we don't really know. Or at least they haven't told me yet. They probably know, but they haven't asked me what I think yet. So I'll let you know the second they ask me what I think, and then they'll yell at me for telling you guys before they were ready to tell guys. So that's the way it works. I get yelled at for spieling on the podcast to you guys, and then you guys show up and support the shows, and then we get bumped from October to July 4. So in my mind, the system is working. This is working, right? This is working. The whole podcast is the leak problem. I think it's working. So, all right, another tour story for this quick tour rant is we have our driver's name is John, spelled the same as mine, so obviously we get along. And, you know, John's a professional driver. He knows what he's doing. He's very good. He's got stories. He's got jokes. He's got everything you would want in a driver. And we were going a little bit fast in a 55. We were going a little fast in a 55. And we got pulled over. And John's talking to, I'm in the backseat. John's talking to the police officer. And they're like hanging out like long lost brothers. Like, is this cool? I know, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Everything's cool. I'm doing my thing. I'm in my zone. You know, and the cop's like, I get it. Everything's good. At the end of this interaction between the cop and John, the police officer and John were shaking hands. And I'm just like, have you ever shook hands with a police officer that pulled you over before? Have you ever done this? I mean, I've definitely been handled by a police officer before that's pulled me over. I've been thrown on the hood of the car, stuff like that. I don't remember shaking hands with any of those guys. I've had maybe a couple positive interactions with police officers who pulled me over. I didn't shake hands with them either. And so I'm wondering, what does this guy know that I don't know? Is there a shaking hands with police officer movement that's happening? You know, which would be insane, but maybe this country needs something like that. Maybe our driver John should run for president and change the whole tenor of this whole country and make things happen. Because, hey, I've never seen anybody do that before, and it worked. You know, we got no ticket, we got a warning or whatever, and we went on our merry way, and we made it to the hotel on time. So it was an eye-opening experience for me. This tour, I have learned a lot on this tour, above and beyond music and jams and sounds and effects. I've learned how to it is possible to shake hands with a cop after they pull you over. All right, so this has been a fun rant. One more thing real quick. Did Marriott just launch a hotel named after Delta Airlines? Like, are they allowed to do this? Isn't Delta Airlines a big enough company that if you were to call a chain of hotels Delta Hotels, people would assume that Delta Airlines is running the Delta Hotels? Wouldn't they assume that? They're both in hospitality. They sell both of the products on Kayak. Like, you go to Kayak, here are your flights, that's Delta. Now here are your hotels, that's also Delta, But is it the different Delta? When Marriott decided to put probably millions and millions and millions of dollars, have they not been to an airport? Have they not heard of Delta Airlines? Do they not fly out of Atlanta? Do they not know, that there's other airlines besides whatever airline they're flying? I don't understand how a giant corporation decides to do something that one Google search would reveal is maybe not the right idea. And I don't know how there's not a massive, some kind of, like, what is going on here? Why has Delta Airlines just been like, yeah, totally, take our name and make a hotel with it? It's got nothing to do with us. Go for it. We love that. How does this happen? If we launched a brand of hotels called The Grateful Dead, which I guess we could do because the Grateful Dead are not as big as Delta, so perhaps we could launch a line of hotels just called The Grateful Dead. And is that possible? Could we do that? Could I start buying hotels and renaming them The Grateful Dead, and then just book rooms and make a nice, sturdy hotel business out of the brand, likeness, and reputation of another business entirely? I guess this is one of my guitar player moments where the world is just too weird for me and too strange. Welcome to the podcast, folks. We're mass communicating.
Welcome to part 3 of Touchdowns All Day's 4-part miniseries on the Disco Biscuits' new space opera, Revolution in Motion. Max Dawson here, you there, 424-666-SIYD, the number to call. Under the covers, Talkin' Biscuits, only on TDAD. In a moment, I will be joined once again by John and Joey for another in-depth analysis of the themes, the mythology, and the story of Revolution in Motion. But before then, a few housekeeping notes. Head over to discobiscuits.com/shows for all the band's latest tour dates. While you're there, sign up for the mailing list. Make sure you're the first to know the next time the band's dates go on sale. Sellouts all across the country, from Charlottesville to Colorado, New York City. Don't be left out in the cold. Pre-buy your tickets, discobiscuits.com/shows. The band has just announced its return to Lafayette, New York on July 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2024 for the second installment of Biscoland. Lots of information about Biscoland, how to get your tickets, who's going to be supporting the band will be coming soon. Keep your eye on the band's official socials. Okay, enough from me. Let's turn things over to John and Joey. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I present the third chapter of our 4-part miniseries on Revolution in Motion, the Disco Biscuits' new space opera. Welcome back to Touchdowns All Day. Joining me remotely in the studio outside of Philadelphia, John Barber.
Hey everyone, how are you? Good to talk. What's up?
And live in Colorado, Joey Friedman.
Hey everybody. Thanks, Max. Hope everybody's been enjoying the space opera so far.
Joey, eschewing 16 inches of powder to talk with us today. What? And by the way, I would never do that. So you are a better man than me. I would still be on the mountain right now, just blowing off text messages, and skiing.
4 hours and 16-inch powder is pretty exhausting. I felt like I made the most of the morning for sure. So this is a lot of fun for me, getting to talk with you guys and talk about this space opera we've written together has been a lot of fun. So I got the best of both worlds today.
It's a testament to Joey's commitment to this band and this project.
That's right. Very committed.
Catch us up on where we are in the story of Revolution in Motion as of the end of chapter 2.
Yeah, I mean, to keep it simple, at the end of chapter 2, the band is beamed up to the spaceship. That's basically it. Magner's got this great idea, and he convinces the band we're going to grab our instruments without much thought into how we're going to make that work. No other gear. Just Mark grabs his bass, John grabs his guitar, Aaron grabs some sticks, Aaron grabs the virus, and they run up the stairs to where they immediately face off with our collection team. The one character in particular who's been kind of having this crisis of confidence, and he finds himself outside the stage door at the Unst dungeon, at the entrance or the exit to the Unst dungeon, and they kind of square off because everybody's supposed to be frozen. They didn't take into account the fact that the biscuits would be so far underground. And they just immediately kind of are like, we got to get out of here. And they zap up the band. They zap up all the frozen specimens that they've kind of they've selected, and they put their little transponders on. And that's the end of the chapter. So that's where we've left you.
So the biscuits have left the Earth behind. They're en route to Polyphusia. They have no idea what to expect. But when they arrive, I guess they have what can only be described as a Karen moment, in effect asking to speak to the alien's manager. And that is the first song of chapter 3, Who's in Charge?
Yeah, well, they're not en route to Polyphusia yet. They're basically, they're en route to the JP-8000 collection vessel, which is sitting somewhere in Earth's upper atmosphere. So what happens in Who's in Charge, the band finds themselves in sort of a holding cell on the spaceship. And they're surrounded by frozen humans. They don't really know what's going on, but they kind of realize that in this electronic environment of this spaceship, because these aliens are electric, that their instruments are actually able to be played without any sort of amplification. Not only are they able to be played, but the ship is sort of reacting to the vibrations of their instruments, sort of like how, like in Encanto, the Disney movie, like the house reacts to the song and the house dances. This ship is sort of reacting to what they're doing. So, the idea of like kind of like an extended Who's in Charge intro is that the band's sort of learning this, and they're also at the same time being inspected by the crew, more specifically by the engineer scientist of the crew, who we've already kind of talked about. He's kind of a main character in the story. He sort of is the one that's sort of having this crisis of confidence in New York, but he's also the one who's charged with inspecting and learning about anything that they may collect. So that is where we start in chapter 3. And the band is kind of being defiant. Right? Like they don't like being locked up in a holding cell, and they don't really know what's going on, but they're not sort of taking this laying down. They're kind of demanding, we want to see who's in charge of this spaceship. And that's exactly what's that. So it's a conversation, this song, of the band sort of demanding to see who's in charge and offering what they have to offer, which is their music. And the other side of the conversation of this song is sort of this scientist who is inspecting them, who's kind of telling them to fuck off, basically, right? Like that's basically what's happening, right? In sort of his own way. But the band is just kind of not having it and demanding to see who's in charge.
I'm going to get right to the demo on this because I like what you just described, Joey, as the introduction to Who's in Charge, essentially representing the band discovering that their instruments are actually impacting the craft. It's an interesting way of thinking through how Who's in Charge can kind of build, and the different sounds you're hearing and the ways in which the 4 band members progressively join in. So I'll go right to what I think is one of the earliest demos of Who's in Charge. rhythmically one of the most interesting songs in the entire collection. At the beginning, when I first heard this, to me, it very much was reminiscent of Talking Heads, Fear of Music style Afrobeat. There's like a real sparse percussive element to it at first. Magner discovers what his keys can do. John, was this something from your archive, or was this an original composition?
This is Techno Orchestra 101 right here. This is, you grab pieces of techno orchestra stuff and you throw it all together. You grab some world beat stuff. You grab some ARP samples. This is basically probably made by me putting together a collage of work done by all the great sample makers in the techno field. And these like hi-hats and these shakers and the drums and this weird line thing. It's all different things that you find, you put them together, but they're crafted by like people who make samples and people who make techno tracks for a living. You don't record the shaker yourself anymore. This was a great find for me during the pandemic. All this just treasure trove of incredible artist work available on the internet in the techno space, and it's unbelievable how talented these people are and the kind of music that you can make.
Is this stuff that you source from Splice or from other online beat and sample marketplaces?
I get it from sample marketplaces, Splice being one of them, Production Music Live being another one. Those are my big two. There's a bunch of others as well, but there's so much up there. And the people that I also watch a lot of their screencasts and take a lot of lessons from those guys, just because like it's so complicated making electronic music, and I need to get to expert level as quick as possible. So it helps me to have these guys around and to just get as much as I can from them.
Joey, is that you?
That is me, yeah. This version has actually a couple extra verses that ended up getting cut. One of which I kind of want the band to I think it'd be fun to bring back on stage, the final verse. But I think the verse we just listened to got cut. We had 2 or 3 verses that we had in this song that we just cut because we didn't really feel that they needed to be there, and we thought the song had what it had without them. But John, what you didn't mention was this was originally one of our Friend Like Steve tracks. This was Playa Friend Like Steve.
Oh, yeah.
When we wrote Friend Like Steve, we were trying to figure out what was the right direction to take the song into. And we had a Broadway Steve, we had a Playa Steve, and we ultimately had the Steve that we went with because we thought that it was the best one for a sing-along effect. But there was a version of Friend Like Steve, which was on top of this. It was like, do you dare have a friend like Steve?
Do
like
you
Steve.
dare?
Yeah, amazing.
That's exactly right.
And then like I was like, man, that's hot. I'm gonna send that to everybody. And then everybody was like, no, we like this other one. I was like, you guys are crazy. This song is hot. And then we, it found its home in the space opera.
Well, I think you made the right choice because this song fits perfectly for the story where it falls. It has such a dark, sinister, foreboding sense. It sounds like science fiction.
Yeah, and there was always a song from the very beginning of like the original track list. I'm pretty sure we had a song called Who's in Charge. There was going to be this song when the band got to the spaceship and had to figure out what was going on. And, this Playa Steve worked out perfectly for it. And again, this was another song where John and I both wrote, and we kind of took the best things that we liked about what each other wrote, and we made it into this song. And this was another song where we spent about 7 hours writing and recording a chorus. Like Yeah, we got to bring it up.
Oh,
It was
you're
a big
bringing
moment.
that
Like
up? Okay.
it was like almost a half a day. We almost spent half a day writing and recording a chorus that, like, I mean, we were adding effects to it. Wagner was harmonizing on it.
We stacked like 15 harmonies.
With
on
like
this
all
thing.
of us, I think, knew in the back of our head, we were like, what are we doing? This isn't working. And we kind of got to the end of the day and we were kind of like a little bit exhausted and we kind of, John and I kind of looked at each other and we weren't really feeling it. And John just looks at me and he goes, what if we just throw everything we did today away and just say, who's in charge of this place right here? And I was like, that sounds like an amazing idea. And that's what we did. And that's kind of how it came to be.
Oh my God, that chorus was so bad. We went out to dinner and it was like, we had just worked on this chorus for hours. And then we went out to dinner and we came back from dinner and all I did was I deleted everything.
Wow.
So that I would never have it again. I just select all, delete. And then, I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere, but you'll never find it.
And it's great because it again, you gotta be, you know, we're very critical of the stuff that we do, right? I mean, even whether it's in the session in real time, like we were with this, or after we put the song out, like, you know, and we feel like something needs to change, like Space Train or One Chance to Save the World, or you know, we're not gonna just sit there and put something out there because we wrote it or we spent time on it, right? We're gonna do what we think is best for the song, and this is a perfect example of that.
This is also
really with all the verses we cut.
Yeah, it sounds like this is a song where less is more. You had to back away from that elaborate 15 stacked vocals on the chorus. You even had to scale back on some of the verses because if I recall correctly, we talked earlier, John, about your idiosyncratic notation system where you were plotting out the different parts of the songs. And I feel like Who's in Charge was one of the ones that was the most challenging and just so lengthy, so many different sections that are small variations on one another. The song had to be simplified and shortened in order to arrive at its final form.
The song came together for me, Mark and Aaron. Joey and I were like running into kind of our roadblocks with this song, and we were just having, you know, like maybe we shouldn't work on this song moments, you know what I mean? Like maybe the song's not for us. And so we brought, Mark and Aaron were in the session, and the two of them were kind of jamming on it. Mark had his bass, Aaron was playing keyboards, I was recording them. Joey was like hanging out, talking to them about the scene. And they kind of came up with these chord progressions, and I really liked one. And then Mark like worked the chord progression over into a bass line and really made the section, which is this section right here. He really made He really made that into a funky, cool section. But there were a couple extra chords in there, and Aaron had like gone upstairs and like got a sandwich or something. And I was like, okay, this is great. I was totally psyched on this section. I was like, Mark, we got it. You nailed it, brother. And then Aaron comes downstairs and pulled one chord off the ending. So there was one, and there's just no extra chord off the ending. And it gave it that like settle down thing that this song has. And then I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And we like recut everything without that chord. And then I knew the song was going to be great at that point because the chord progression was uniquely this tune and served the purpose of like giving us something funky to jam over and rock out over. So at that point, I was like, oh, wow, this is a great song. And I really feel like this song is like, you know, there's a lot of people's input in this song, and it's really why this song is so great. This song still holds up to me as like, you know, one of the best songs we did in the session.
Who's in Charge debuted June 2022 on the Dumb Tour with an absolutely monstrous version. Just a real statement. And, you know, for all I know, it could be that because it was one of those debuts where you don't know how to end the song. So you just keep going and going and going. And it ends up being just like 2/3 of the set is this giant Who's in Charge. You've since played it 28 times, 28 more times, excuse me. It has been a mainstay of the sets ever since, and a song that just has just tremendous potential to open up. There are so many different places. I'll ask another question about how this song has evolved. John, in those first Dumb shows, you were singing these songs with lots of vocal effects, with the very, not just the kind of subtle auto-tune for pitch correction, but the very deliberately noticeable auto-tune. And I loved it. I thought it was really cool. It created a futuristic science fiction sort of vocal timbre that went really well with the subject matter. But you've since backed away from that. I know that some of the demos continue to feature different vocal effects and filters. What are your thoughts about using those filters on stage? What are some of the reasons why you backed away from it after the initial versions of Who's in Charge?
Well, I think working with Cloud Chord is a big part of that. He likes a natural vocal. He likes a natural guitar. He doesn't want me editing my guitar solos. He likes me to get a take that feels good. He doesn't want me editing the vocals too much. He wants me to just sing it and be the vocal and just hit it and just get it right, and then have that be featured on the track. Whereas myself, I'm trying to create sounds with the vocals that are almost unique to each song and have a vibe that tells the story in itself. So I am looking for, I don't know about robot voices, but I am looking for like processed, different sounding vocals that have a lot of different effects to them. But then when the song gets to Cloud Chord, he just turns them off and moves on with his day. And so that's why you have a producer, is to kind of tell you maybe you're going too far here, you're not going far enough here. That's a lot of what Cloud Chord does, is he keeps the music sounding real when, the demo sounds, insanely in one direction. And that's why the demos are different than the Biscuit versions. And they both are kind of cool. Like Another Plan of Attack, they're very different. And the vocals are very different. So that's what's going on there. I kind of appreciate him doing that because I listened back to a lot of those vocal sounds and I feel a little like, oh, well, that was too much and that was too much. But now we're getting better at applying them in a subtle way, getting the effect without like kind of ruining the whole vocal and stuff like that. And I think we are going to bring that to stage more and more as it becomes unique per song, which it's kind of happening right now.
People have heard Cloud Chord on Touchdowns All Day. They've hopefully by this point listened to some of the Cloud Chord remixes. Cloud Chord is an essential part of this collaboration and bringing these songs to fruition. John, Joey, do you want to talk a little bit about Derek's involvement just in general, how he was brought on the project and the role he plays in helping to shape some of these creative decisions when you are going from the demos to the final album versions?
I mean, Cloud Chord is the producer. I think that, him and I are both producing all these tracks from a technical production perspective. I think that Joey's producing, from a, kind of like a almost just from the story perspective. You need all these brains focusing on the things that they're focusing on to get this kind of deep of a product. And so I don't really argue with Cloud Chord when he has a production decision that I think is maybe different than what I was going for, because it is his job to be in charge of the final mix. And he's really, really good at that. I feel like having him involved in the project where we are like literally, we're finishing our writing session with demos that you could literally release. I mean, you could recut the vocals, maybe add a guitar solo and release them. But when it goes through Derek, it goes through a whole nother process of production. Things get changed, things get added, things get taken away. And, we do have to allow Derek the space and the freedom to have artistic expression there, because he is doing a lot. And it's the sound quality and the overall mixture of the band with the techno orchestra and the different types of band cuts. You know, we go into the studio with drums and bass. We do different things. I cut bass here all the time. Me and Mark get a great tone here on bass, so he likes that. And so we're always mixing it up with Cloud Chord, giving him different looks, different setups, different feels, different sound quality. And he just takes all of that and seamlessly mixes it into this album. And you just have to applaud that. You have to have somebody like that in a process like this, or you end up with an album where one sounds like one creative idea you had one day, and another song sounds like a creative idea you had another day, and it doesn't listen from track to track to track. And Derek has just been one of the most prolific releasers on Spotify. He puts songs out more than anyone I know, except for maybe NBA Youngboy. And he just has, just this incredible ability to take something like the Disco Biscuits, which is a band, and maintain the band in a song that is all techno orchestra or something like that. And so I feel like he did an incredible job of that on this whole set of songs. So I applaud him for that. I mean, that's the hard part. That's the part that we needed him to do, and he really showed up for that in a major way.
Yeah, the cohesion that you hear from song to song on the final album is really a major contribution.
Yeah, that's all Cloud Chord. Also, he also like some nasty moments in the like the single snare fill on the way into the chorus of Twisted. Like there's some tasty moments that are all Cloud Chord as well that, is really nice to have, a producer that's adding tasty moments. I love that.
Yeah, the album, I've listened to the album back to front so many times now, I can't even count, but it has this flow to it that you just feel like, especially once you know the story and you listen to this album, I think Cloud Chord has done a fantastic job of really sort of capturing the emotion of each song that we're trying to capture. And it feels like you're listening to a story when you listen to it front to back. And, I think John said pretty much all that needs to be said. I just want to say personally, I've got so much appreciation for Cloud Chord, especially for like kind of accepting me into the process. I may not always be the easiest to work with, especially because I don't really know how music stuff goes. And, I liken it, you always hear about people that write something, squaring off with the directors and the producers when they make the movie or something like that with the writers. And, Cloud Chord has definitely shown a lot of patience with me, but also has been so inviting of me into the process. And I think as we went on, especially, and I mean, Zoom has been a huge tool too. I mean, being able to get on Ableton on Zoom with all of us and talk through all the different spots and what we're thinking about and what we're going for. I think we just got better and better as the album went on. And Derek's just a great guy. He's been an instrumental part of the team, and I really just appreciate him. And really for accepting me as such a prominent voice in this process. It's been really great. So
kudos.
Joey, you mentioned that Who's in Charge features the perspectives of both the band as they're demanding answers and also of the aliens who are telling them to sit down and shut the hell up. How do we get from this tense moment to the next song, which is The Deal? The 2023 Song of the Year, subject of the New Year's Eve countdown, without a doubt some of River Gutwillig's finest work as a composer, but also in a sense, like the real, like this is the crux of Revolution in Motion. It all builds toward this.
Yeah. So, and just to touch on what you just said, like I've always looked at the Disco Biscuits as a band who doesn't do things the way that other bands do it. And they've always kind of had a sort of almost like an us against the world mentality to them. And I think you get on a spaceship, you don't know who's there or what kind of power these aliens have, but you're still just going to bring it to them. All right. You're going to bring it to them. You're not going to wait and see what happens. You're going to demand. You're not going to, you're going to demand to see who's in charge of this spaceship. And so what happens, and so that's what they do, right? They bring it to the aliens, and the guy who's in charge, the captain, I think he really he appreciates that. in them, right? And so the guy who's in charge, the captain, sort of hears this whole spaceship reverberating with this music. And he hears this band, right? He's watching them play these instruments through some window, in the lab, like through some single-sided window, like you would do in if you're watching an Interview Suspect or something like that. And he's hearing this music that's very electronic sounding, which he's always loved electronic music, but being played with instruments that he's never seen, with hands which he's already obsessed with. And the light bulb kind of goes off in his head. And he's like, my whole life, all the messing around, all the getting in trouble, all the slacking off has led me to this band, right? And I almost liken it to every Disco Biscuits fan moment when they get the band, right? My Tussie O2 moment, or that moment that every Biscuits fan has, if you ask them, where that light bulb goes off and all of a sudden other bands don't sound the same, right? And the deal is that moment for this captain, right? He realizes that this is the music for him. And not only is it the music for him, he thinks it's the music for his planet. And he thinks that and this is the key to him fully achieving what he was set out to do, and proving to his mother that he's worthy of all these things, and living up to his full potential. So what you basically have in the deal is he has this moment and he approaches the band with an offer. And that offer is,
let's write a rock opera together.
Well, if we're looking at parallels, there's certainly parallels to that, but no, the offer is, come with me willingly to my planet and play this music for my people and my mother. And I will let all of these all the frozen specimens, they're basically lab rats at that point. Like, they're not going to live on this other planet. They're going to go into some laboratory to be inspected. But what he says to the band is, he says, come with me as my brother, or as one of us, and I will let all of these frozen people go. We'll send them back to Earth. We'll release the freeze on Manhattan. Earth will be good, and I promise you that I will try to get you home eventually when it's all said and done. But in order to do that, in order for the band to survive this journey and to live in this atmosphere of this other planet, they have to become part alien a little bit. And so in order to do that, the alien basically has to transfer some of his electronic alien DNA to the band so that they can ultimately survive this trip back through the wormhole, back to Polyphusia, and live and perform, and survive and perform on this planet to the mother. So that's what the deal is. The deal is, I like you guys. This is the best thing I've ever heard. I think you can be the biggest band, not only in my planet, but in the universe. And I want you to come with me willingly. And in return, I will let all of these people go, but you're going to have to become part alien. And that's what the deal is. Now, there's a little bit of, you don't really have a choice in the matter, right? And we reflect that in the lyric. You want to test my generosity, right? Like, there's no saying what's going to happen if the band doesn't choose this, but the band in their head is, well, being the biggest band in the universe sounds pretty good to us, and we're going to save all these people, and this guy really likes us, and he seems like a pretty powerful guy, so let's do it. And so, there's actually, as the song progresses, there's sort of the first two choruses, which are the captain pitching the deal to the band. Come with me and light the world on fire, and the frozen will be free. But the last chorus, by now the band has gone through this electronic DNA transference process. They become kind of part alien, and it's everybody singing together. We could be a beautiful thing. Let's put it all on the table. Yeah, we could be a beautiful thing. So the song starts with this first interaction. The deal gets pitched, and by the end of the song, the band is part alien and they're ready to go to Polyphusia.
Amazing. This is so illuminating to me, and I can only imagine that everyone who's listening is going to be having the proverbial light bulb going off over their head as well. Electricity, I can feel it coming over me. That's, if I have this correct, that's the band's DNA melding with that of the aliens, and the band essentially becoming superhuman or part alien in their own right.
That's exactly right. Yes.
The band are putting their hands on the electric receptacles that the aliens wrap their non-hand tentacles around. The band's holding it, and then the signals are coming through the band, and that's electricity, right? And that's basically the whole band is doing that. And once you do that, you can't come back from that. You are changed. It's through your whole body. And that's basically what happens to them visually speaking is they're in this giant room basically attaching themselves to the electric system that the aliens are on because they need to be a part of that for the ship to continue with them surviving. And I just think it's very on character for this rogue kind of party prince guy who's driving around doing crazy stuff. He trips into a wormhole, right? To then find this amazing human specimen and then decide that the music is the good part of what he's found. And we don't need the other stuff. Let's just bring the music home. That'll be what everybody really loves. And it just feels like it's very on character for this character who's essentially stepping into his own as a deal maker and a person who's doing something important on behalf of his people. But at the same time, what's important to him is music and the vibes and how interesting that is. And it's not like the botany or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a message of the triumph of art over all of the acquisitiveness and greed that, that was his initial mission. Colonialism, conquer, bring back specimens, experimentation. And instead he's saying, I'm bringing back culture, something that can unify us. And that, this planet isn't just something to despoil, but this is a planet that has things to teach us. And specifically, it has this form of music that these people with hands can create that we have never experienced the likes of. Who's shot caller?
That's the captain in the prior song and who's in charge. They say, we want to know who's calling the shots. We got the music, we got the sound. And so the next song, shot caller is the captain. Now, the verses of the song are, the plot of the song is really told in the chorus, right?
Yeah.
The electricity coming over me, we could be a beautiful thing. And then the chorus, the verses are a little bit more up for interpretation, but the gist of the verses is the shot caller is the captain, and he's actually having this moment to himself. He's like, try not to act so emotionally, but I feel like I'm gonna act emotionally anyway, because like the rational thing to do would be to probably freeze these guys and freeze everybody, but really he's gonna go lead with his heart, which tells him that there's something more here. And then there's also this idea that he's had this premonition sort of throughout his adulthood, like he's seen in his dreams something similar to this. He didn't know what it was or what it meant, but he's kind of seen these figures. He's maybe seen hands in his dreams, but he didn't really know how to make of it. And now in this moment, it's all coming to him. Like, this is the moment that he saw. This is the moment that he predicted, and that he knows what he needs to do is sort of do what he feels instead of what, the books tell him to do.
Yeah. Well, John, we've already discussed how the origins of the Dio came from a keyboard figure that River played, that you heard, you recorded, and you expanded out to form the basis of this track. I'm going to play for you guys a very early demo. This demo, when Joey first shared it with me, the first reaction I had was, oh, is this like a Spangle thing? And I heard elements of the sort of sonic palette from late 90s, early 2000s Spangle, mixture of acoustic and electric instruments, a really organic feel, but with a dance, like a truly powerful psytrance backbeat. So I'll play that early demo. And John, why don't you talk a little bit about the first sketches, because this is another song that has evolved tremendously from the early draft in terms of tempo, instrumentation, the arrangement, but already early on, there was something that you had here.
wanting to hear the guitar come in. There's no guitar on this version. I keep wanting to hear that.
Joey, it's another one of those examples where you took a very common phrase. You've mentioned, in our episode covering the new songs, act like you've been here before, lightning in a bottle. You love to take a common phrase, something that people already know, and recontextualize it and turn it into a chorus. Let's Make a Deal is a great example of that. It's something that the first time you hear it, you can immediately sing along.
Yeah, so this song, I think on our original track list, was called The Meeting with the Guy Who's in Charge, right? Like we knew we knew there was going to be a song called Who's in Charge, and then we knew immediately after that they had to interact with the guy who's in charge. And this was an example of a song where, this was that was on the track list from the very beginning, but it was the last song we wrote. It was just one of those ones where, we had changed it to the deal. I was on a plane in the summertime and I wrote a version of this song that again, doesn't sound anything like this, but over some like disco funk track. And that's where I kind of thought, like, let's make a deal. Let's put our cards on the table. And there were some other lines, but this idea that like the band and the aliens were going to negotiate, and let's make a deal just kind of popped into my head. That's a phrase that makes sense when you're negotiating. And so I kind of brought there's some lyrics, but electricity wasn't a part of it, right? Like the whole electricity part, and We Could Be a Beautiful Thing, wasn't a part of that. And we started writing the song, and this was the song we wrote over a couple days. And the first day didn't have the electricities. It had some of the Let's Make a Deal stuff, and it had some other stuff, and it was like a fine song, but it wasn't really cooking. And we woke up the next morning, and we kind of did some mind expansion exercises and stuff like that. And then we kind of just sat back down. And when we sat back down, this whole new sort of vibe came to the song. And I remember I kind of thought of this electricity, I can feel it coming over me line. And I said to John, I was like, this is the last song. We've written 14 songs about these electronic aliens, and we haven't used the word electricity yet. And I was kind of like, electricity. I was like just saying it. I was like, it's kind of fun to say. And John was like, electricity. And we were like, electricity. And we were like, has any electronic build ever been just use the word electricity over and over again? I always Google to see if somebody's done it before. I'm like, nobody's ever done it before. And we were like, yes. And we had this amazing moment with these electricities. And then there's this also, the We Could Be a Beautiful Thing, is really a sentiment about it. Any deal that you ever make with any partnership, right? You want it to work out, right? Like the perfect partnership or the perfect deal benefits both sides, right? Unless you're like some exploitative kind of huckster that's trying to get over on somebody, which isn't what's happening here. So this concept of electricity is the core of this deal, but We Could Be a Beautiful Thing, I think resonated with John and I, and it really took, so Let's Make a Deal was always kind of part of it, but that electricity part of it was not. And when that sort of became the thing, that's when this song, we knew we had a real song on our hands. And now we've got those I mean, come on, those electricity built at the show are just so fire, and so big and so emotional. And, we just experienced it on New Year's Eve at the countdown, right? And like right at the top of one, We Could Be a Beautiful Thing. It's just like such a good sentiment. So simple, but it works. It really works.
I remember the first time I experienced the power of those electricity chants. It was at the Mission on March 31st. And seeing how that song transformed the room, I realized the deal was not one of the songs that initially jumped out at me as this is going to be the standout song, the song of the year, the song that would be the basis of the New Year's countdown. I didn't see that at first. I knew it was something, but I didn't know what it would become. And the first time I experienced it live was at that show, and seeing people's hands in the air, fists pumping, chanting along Electricity with the band. And then the We Could Be a Beautiful Thing. It's a wonderful message, both within the context of the story, and, there's also that same energetic exchange taking place between the band and the crowd. The electricity, we're all raising our hands. We're all feeling that. We're in the role of the band at that point. We're submitting ourselves to this energy and making a really beautiful thing collectively through that process.
I kind of knew it was going to be the song. I had that feeling. I kind of balked. We had the chorus with the Frozen Will Be Free, and then I kind of balked on it, and we kind of toyed around with the final chorus being the chorus for a couple versions, and then we kind of felt like it was missing something, and Aaron really liked the Frozen Will Be Free melody, and it was the Cap Theater version was when we kind of, before the show, that the March Cap Theater 2023, when we really worked out what the song form was going to be. And I think that was when the song really started to reach the next, got to that next level. And then it just, from there, every version from the Cap on, there was the Harrisburg one after Spaceberg deal. And then there was the next one, and then obviously culminating it with the Milwaukee one, which was just absolutely incredible. And now they're all just monsters, but, it was that Cap Theater deal, which I think really got the song where it needed to go to jump to that next level.
It was crazy too, because we did the song in Mark's basement in a rehearsal with full band, with full equipment, and we played the deal for the first time for like 4 hours straight. And Aaron was doing all this incredible stuff, and it was amazing. And then when we got to stage, it was just like, it was almost like we never did that. And it was like back to square one when we got to stage. And it was just like, what happened to this song? It just vanished on us. So that was a weird situation where like the band on the fly in an improv way created this incredible thing, but then we didn't remember to record it and capture it and write it down. And then when we got to stage, it was like, what was that again? And nobody could remember what they were doing. So it took us a couple times to like figure it out from there.
John, this isn't your first rock opera. You've written one of these before, and you, in the writing of the Hot Air Balloon, you saved for last Above the Waves and Hot Air Balloon, and they became the payoff. And here the deal comes a little earlier in the set, but it fulfills a similar function. This is the equivalent of Coronado surviving. This is the big dramatic climax in a very, or at least an important dramatic waypoint within the context of this story. Did you realize while you were writing this song, John, was it front of mind or weighing on you that I need to write are above the waves. I need to write the song.
Yes. Yes, the whole time in the thing. And that's the electricity part to me was so important because that was the moment where I was like, oh, this is like a dope Radiohead song now. Where it's just like the song got bigger than the Biscuits in my mind. You know what I mean? It was like suddenly I could hear Bob Marley doing this song. Like it was like this song became this thing that was its own feeling, its own vibe, its own uniqueness. It had its own like climactic energy to it. And you know, it was kind of bigger than the space opera for me at that point, and that's what I wanted. But I was like sweating nervous the day and a half that we worked on this song because, you know, the beat that Joey had originally for the song was really cool, and it was very like house funk, a cool song, but it wasn't the song that you're talking about, you know? And so I had to somehow get Joey off of the song that he was writing and on to something else, but I didn't have anything else. So I was just, but we needed the song to be this kind of unique, like stairway to the top of the, you know, pyramid or whatever. And so I had this, you know, the little techno riff that me and River did, and it was just like I was picturing that as like a huge Armin van Buuren song or something, and I just kind of was like, maybe we can use that to give it some techno power to keep it in that world of like epic scope techno, and knowing full well that we don't really do epic scope techno, but perhaps like having something in the song that has that characteristic would make the song kind of live up to that energy. And then when we had the electricity part, I was like, oh, we're even beyond that energy at this point. Like this is bigger than like a huge techno break, because the electricity is the theme of the entire life for the aliens. Like they're all chanting it together almost all the time because it's their energy, it's their water, it's their blood, it's their how they communicate and live and everything. And so then I was like, wow, this is going to be something cool. And my my otherwise nervousness alleviated, which is, somebody pointed out to me the other day, they're like, you don't get stage fright or anything. And I was like, yeah, I don't, but I get studio fright sometimes because there's sometimes, you know, you have to walk into the studio and create something that's going to last a long time. It's good to have that pressure. It's good to have that feeling. It feels great to have accomplished our goal there. But yeah, it's definitely on the way into the studio. You know when you're in that mode.
Mark talked about how an important part of the development of the deal was bumping it up to 132 beats per minute. Did you, from the demo, which is admittedly at a slower pace, was that a logical step for you? How did that come about? Was there a negotiation? Was there a deal that had to be made, or did that just organically occur through playing it on stage and realizing that you could push the tempo on it a little bit?
I think that Mark has the final say on tempo for our band pretty much universally. I can't think of a single song where I would overrule something that he thinks is a correct tempo. I really trust his instincts as far as the tempo of the songs. He has a much finer grained sensitivity to tempo than I do. And if he says this song should be 5 BPM faster, I would never just ignore that comment ever. We probably moved the tempo of the song immediately once he said it. And then maybe we tried to bring it back just to see, like, at that point you're experimenting with the tempo, so you might as well move it around a bunch and see what happens. I know that Joey has had some real input into tempo as far as To Be Continued, which I guess we'll talk about when we get there. We definitely play that song at Joey's tempo. And it's great. And it's great. I think, you know, tempo is one of those things where if you move it around and the song does change and people have like real emotional impact at the tempo at certain speeds, that you as a composer, you really have to take note of that And you really need a good reason to go against that. If somebody, especially Mark, if Mark says the tempo should be here, if you want to move the tempo from where he thinks it should be, you got to have a really, really good reason.
So, Joey, the deal represents the melding of the band and the polyfusions. There's electricity running through their bodies. Their DNA has been transformed. Their power's growing stronger. Take us through the next phase, the last song in chapter 3, Space Train.
Yeah, so the deal and who's in charge kind of take place in sort of the upper atmosphere or just outside the Earth's orbit, somewhere in space on the spaceship, but relatively close to Earth. And then after the deal is made, they've got to fly back to Polyphusia. And they've got to go back through the wormhole to get there. So the idea, when they crashed through the wormhole, it was an undetected wormhole. They knew nothing about it, and they just kind of wung it and flew their spaceship into it. But when the spaceship went through the wormhole, it learned all about the wormhole, right? It's got sensors on it. They got all the science they needed. So now flying back through the wormhole isn't a crazy thing. It's something that they can do now. It's a charted wormhole. They know the science behind it. And so essentially Space Train is the trip from the outer reaches of Earth or the solar system back through the wormhole to Polyphusia. And it's really sung by the band, who is now sort of we start with Rolling Through Outer Space with the Brothers, and the Brothers is the crew of the JP8000. And now it's the crew of the JP8000 and the band, right? They're biologically related. They're spiritually related. And this song is really sort of about the band kind of having a moment together. And the gist of it is, man, we've been in this rock and roll band for 25 plus years, and we've seen some shit. But this takes the cake, right? It's like you think you've seen it all, but we've got this new energy, right? And again, parallels to this space opera band for 25 years. And now we got this new energy injected in it. These aliens have been going along doing their thing, and now they have this new energy injected into them. So it's really about the band sort of having this moment together, sort of thinking back on their careers and everything that led them to this moment, which is now them flying through the universe to this foreign planet to play this song for a queen. There's also how would I want to say it? They also have to write a song for the queen, right? So that we actually call that out. Now we got to play one for the queen. So there's also kind of, in this trip, the band has to come together to write the song that they're going to play for her, which doesn't exist yet because they don't have a song that was written for Alien Queen. So they've got to kind of write that. And this song is kind of happening during the process of that. And that's the gist of it, right? They're on the spaceship, which kind of looks like a train. They're flying to Polyphusia. They're writing this song, and they're all kind of just taking inventory of what's gotten them to this point. But they're also with their new friends, right? And it's also celebratory, right? They feel good about where they're at. And they're going to lift off, and that's both literal, lifting off out of Earth's orbit to go through the wormhole, but it's also, lifting off into this new, whatever comes next.
There's such a sense of anticipation in this song. I hear it, and you're giving me additional context now that fleshes this out and provides some more accurate detail. But I always heard this is like the scene in a movie where the heroes are arming themselves in anticipation of the final confrontation. They're like cleaning their shotguns and they're, crossing themselves. They've got bandoliers. Only here it's, Alan's twirling his drumsticks and Mark's doing runs on his bass and John's tuning up and Magner's, doing some flourishes. They're getting ready. They know they're headed into the biggest venue of their lives.
Bump. I can just see them on the spaceship with Mark on his bass, just working out the bump, like just fit one chance to save the world is just echoing in everybody's head as they're like kind of trying to figure out what do I play for an alien queen, so yeah, that's exactly right. You can just sense, in this story where music is the weapon, really, them preparing for battle is them writing this song. So I think that's a really good thing you've drawn there.
So John, this song contains the line "on a space taxi," which, as listeners to this entire series will recall, was long speculated to be the title of a rock opera that you were rumored to be writing in the early 2010s. There's all sorts of threads dedicated to this online. There was even a track that you played in 2013 with Kick Rocks that we'll be listening to later that was labeled on the tapes as Space Taxi. John, where did this concept of a space taxi or even just this phrase or title come from? And how did it find its way into Revolution in Motion after all these years?
Well, Space Taxi was the name of the original demo of One Chance to Save the World, the do-do-do-do-do-do, which to me was a groovy thing that kind of described a space taxi driving around through space. And then the space taxi would stop and the door would open and do-do-do-do-do-do. And like, I had all this music describe this process. But I didn't really have a band at the time necessarily because the Biscuits were in disarray, and Kick Rocks was never that, wasn't really a band. It was, we kind of did some shows, but we never got together in one place and rehearsed, for more than a couple of hours at best. So the song needed like some real conceptual love to get the point across. And I just I thought it was interesting that there's going to be an outer space FedEx at some point, and there's going to be an outer space Uber. And at the time, it was just like this concept. There was never any drama. There was never any like real opera to it. I did not know about these chat rooms online or anything. But I really liked that groove, and I liked the idea. Then Joey used Space Taxi in the song Space Train so that he could take the music for Space Taxi and use it for One Chance to Save the World without me complaining that the song should be called Space Taxi. And I applaud him for that level of like just separating the wheat from the chaff, if you will.
Well, this was a situation where we knew the band had to get back to the planet, right? So, And I liked the term Space Taxi. In fact, I never even asked. I didn't know about the rock opera. I just thought the song was called Space Taxi. It's like a cool name. I didn't know. I didn't find out about the FedEx thing until the podcast, right? So we never actually had that conversation. But I liked the term Space Taxi. So I always kind of in the original track listing had the song where they had to fly back to the planet called Space Taxi, and we had a placeholder there. And then what happened was it was the writing session when we wrote Who's in Charge and Shocked. We had another day, and Aaron just started composing something. So this song was not a loop. It was not a jam. This was just a brand new composition that started with something that Aaron was playing. And he started playing it. And John, it was you. You kind of started singing the chorus. I remember you were clapping and you were banging on the desk, and we were doing the On a Space Train, right? And this was before the liftoffs, and Heading on a Mission came much later. But the original the original chorus, and then so he started. So then this was actually a situation where most songs we sat down and we said this was the song we were going to write today. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen in this case. This case, Aaron just started writing a song. John started singing On a Space Train, On a Space Taxi, which then indicated to me, this is the song we're writing right now. And then I just started writing the lyrics to the first verse, which is kind of, I started thinking about what would these guys be thinking about on this space shuttle trip across the universe to this foreign planet. And that was sort of, and it came across just sort of very organically, it just kind of came up. And so that was sort of how that all came to be.
Well, let me play early demo Space Taxi. Is this the part that Magner was fiddling around with that inspired things?
That's right.
Yes.
Why did you drop the Into the Night?
I mean, we had too much Into the Night. We have Running Into the Night. It was just like, I feel like Into the Night's a good thing to sing when you're trying to feel your way into something. But the Biscuits just have sort of a lot of those types of thoughts already. And we didn't think it added to it.
I like the phrase a lot. Apparently, too much. I like the phrase too much. They are flying into the black of the solars of the universe. So it is. I'm trying to describe something there, but you got to keep it original for each song. Each song's got to have its own uniqueness, and you got to cut things that are
like a lot of times when you're writing these songs, right? You lean on certain phrases that you're comfortable with to get melodies that you like and to get the structure of a song down, right? And then you have to look at that after the fact and think of something better to put in its place. And I think that's really what happened with this song. And this song, more than any other one, except for maybe One Chance to Save the World, was a song that really evolved almost as the story evolved, right? Like when we wrote this song, we hadn't written the deal yet. This whole concept of we kind of knew that the band and the aliens were going to come together, but I think this song evolved into a much more familial song between the aliens and the band as the story evolved. The early versions were really cool. But when we got together towards the end of the year, John kind of was like, this song just needs something. It needs something. And we just started improvising, and that's when the whole, heading on a mission, getting all our friends together. And it was me and him improvising, and just we were kind of like marching around and improvising. And the song then got to where it is now, which I think is pretty cool and unique. And the lift-offs, I think, were, kind of like that electricity moment when we came up with the lift-off. It's just that like escalating melody of a simple phrase that makes a lot of sense, but people can really relate to. And I think it really got the song over the kind of that next level. This song was really ethereal and really cool, but it just kind of a little flat maybe, and I think we just needed to add something to it to get it to pop a little more.
Yeah, the heading on a mission, getting all our friends together, liftoff part, if I recall correctly, was introduced after the song had already been played a number of times.
Yeah. We went back to work on this one because we just didn't think we'd given it that special something yet, and I'm happy we did, because sometimes I feel like songs die when you don't give them that special something. You could play it 5 times, you could play it 10 times, then 2 years later it's gone, and you really got to give the song something special to make it so when you play it in the set, everybody is super excited, and that's why we put it back. That's why we put it in the shop and moved it.
This song
gave it something new.
Was a situation where we needed a demo. We needed like a completed demo. We had this version, which we wrote in April, and then we didn't touch it. The band played it a couple times, and it had great jams for it. And then I think we got back together as we were finishing it up and writing the deal and finishing some of the last songs, and we needed to have sort of a final form for this song, and that sort of forced us to come take a look at it, and that's when we made the changes we did. But the thing I like about this song is in the story, it's them sort of lifting off into the unknown of what's about to happen next. And this song doesn't have like a big capper ending to it. It really is sort of a launch pad for the jam that comes from it. So it really musically is sort of a lift off, right? Like the chorus and the hook, they're cool, but they're not like some mind blowing composition or anything. And it really is about setting this base to launch from into a really cool jam, which Space Train does produce some amazing electronic jams. And it's really kind of musically them, taking off and going through this wormhole and then ultimately getting to their final destination, which is Polyphusia. Yeah.
And there's a great symmetry here with this song. It's sort of the mirror image of Tourists. It's the journey back. Well, it's not, the journey back to Earth. It's another space journey. And there's also the parallel between, as you mentioned, Joey, the rolling through outer space with my brothers, and headed on a mission, get all our friends together and lifting off. Like there's a callback here. There's a theme throughout, which is that these journeys, they bond us together. They form strong ties that are meaningful when we're tested in these environments. And it's a great metaphor for tour. You know, what we're headed on a mission. Yeah. We're about to head out on the Why We Dance tour. By the time this airs, it'll be well underway. But what is a better analogy for tour than head on a mission, getting all our friends together, and we lift off, lift off, lift off.
I love that. That's great. You know, and it's just another, you know, this story.
I like that.
We've said it a million times. It's a space opera, but it's not inherently about space, right? It's about the experiences that we live together, following this, either being in this band or following this band, which sometimes is kind of the same thing in my case, but, you know, so it's, you know, it really, I like that. I really like that thought.
Everybody plays a role. Joey, this brings us to the end of chapter 3 of Revolution in Motion. And you know what that means, guys? We only have one more chapter left. How is the story going to resolve? You know what 3 songs we still have on the board, but I have no idea really how things turn out. So Joey, wrap things up for us with a final recap of chapter 3, and then give us a little sneak preview of the 4th and final chapter of this saga.
Yeah, thanks, Max. So chapter 3 begins with sort of the band leaving Earth, getting zapped up to the spaceship and finding themselves in this holding cell of the spaceship, where they realize that, you know, despite Magner's poor planning of just grabbing these instruments without any cords or any amps or anything, fortunately, they're on an electronic spaceship, right, that automatically powers their instruments. So they realize that not only can they play, but they're playing even sounds they didn't even know they could play, and the ship is reacting to their instruments. And the band, being the defiant band, kind of march by our own drum band that they are, it demands to see who's in charge, right? They get on this spaceship and they're not backing down. They're going to take the music, take the fight to this alien. And fortunately, they've actually come across an alien who really respects that about them. And this alien hears this music and has that aha moment that every Biscuits fan has when that light goes off and realizes that this is the music that he's been searching for his whole life. And if this band will come with him, become part alien, travel across the world and play for his mom and help him fulfill his destiny and bring their music to his planet, he'll let all the frozen specimens that were going to spend the rest of their lives as lab rats basically on this foreign planet, he'll let them go. He'll leave Earth alone, and he'll promise to try to get the band home one day, to which the band agrees. Whether they had much choice or not, we don't know, but they do agree. They become part alien, and then they ultimately begin their journey back through the wormhole and through the outer reaches of space to Polyphusia, where they have to write a song, right? So they begin writing the song, which they're going to play for his queen in the next chapter. And they also take a moment to sort of reflect on how they got there. And that's where we find ourselves. And really the song ends, the lift off is the last lyric of the part, but really it ends with sort of them kind of entering the atmosphere of Polyphusia in this big, broke, dirty, beaten down spaceship that's been through wormhole and back, kind of slowly, coming back down to land in Polyphusia, to return after a long journey away.
That's where we'll leave it, folks. Join us here again late March, early April for the 4th and final installment of Revolution in Motion. I'll be rejoined by John and Joey, and we will take you through the long anticipated dramatic conclusion of this intergalactic saga. Until then, John, Joey, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks, Max.
Thanks, Max.
that's where we'll leave it. Touchdowns all day. Part 3 of our Revolution in Motion miniseries. Part 4 coming soon. Touchdowns All Day is an Osiris Media production. Rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're at it, consider sharing an episode with a friend. Lots of ways to connect with us online. You can check us out at www.touchdownsallday.com. You can hit us on Facebook, the Touchdowns All Day Facebook group. John is at Barber Shreds, and I'm at FY Maxwell on Instagram and X. And you can also keep in touch with us at TDADBaby on X or at Touchdowns All Day on Instagram. And finally, call us on the Touchdowns All Day hotline, 424-666-SIYD. That's 424-666-7493. Toll-free number, not really, but your opportunity to leave us a voicemail. This episode was written, produced, and edited by Max Dawson. Special assistance by Crunk Mike and Osiris Media. Our photographer is Tara Gracer. We get audio support from Rich Steele and Drew Granicelli. Special thanks to Mark, Aaron, John, Alan, Ben Baruch, and Andrew Kaplan at 1111 Management, Andy Bazzani and Mike Walsh at the Biscuits Internet Project, the entire Disco Biscuits road crew, Joey Friedman, Steve Martocci, Scott McClintock over at Think Tank Dubs, and an extra special heartfelt thanks to Lisa Gutwillig, Deb Brownstein, Angelica Magner, Sandra O'Quinn, Andrea Rivers, and especially Avery McMahon. On behalf of John Barber, Crunk Mike, and the entire Touchdowns All Day family, this is Max Dawson saying, see you next time.
Play mass communicate. Mass communicate. Mass communicate.
Osiris.